Good morning, family. Welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Friday, October 24th, 2008. And today we're reading in Genesis chapter 25. And there's really, as always, there's a lot in these chapters. And I encourage you to read it for yourself and see what you get out of it. And you can email us and we'll put it on the blog. But this chapter is talking about Isaac and Rebekah, and they're having twins, Esau and Jacob. Esau comes out a little bit before Jacob. And Esau, says, was a hunter, so he was out in the field a lot. And Jacob, says, was a plain man, so he was in the tent, as they said. And towards the end of this chapter is really where there's a great lesson, I believe, to be learned, or several lessons that we can learn from this chapter. So Esau goes out into the field, and he comes back, and he's hungry. And Jacob basically gives him a bowl of lentils for Esau's birthright. Now, the birthright is privileges that Esau has because he was the first one born into the family. So he gives up his birthright in order to get that food from Jacob. And the first lesson is, two main lessons I want to point out today. The first lesson I believe we can learn from this is about properly planning ahead. Properly planning ahead, because Esau was just involved in that moment. He said if he didn't get that food, that he believed he was going to die. So he just thought about that moment and that he wanted the food. And he didn't think ahead to say, well, what if I survive this and I live till tomorrow? Then now if I give away my birthright, I will have my birthright for the rest of the year. I'm just thinking about today and getting this food today, but for the rest of my life I won't have this birthright. So I'm giving up something that can last a lifetime for something that's just temporary for today. And that's something that we really need to learn from and adopt even in our daily activities. We just had a family meeting even yesterday, just doing planning for the month ahead, for the year ahead. And that's something that we really need to start adopting our everyday lives, to plan ahead, not just be so involved in the moment. Because if you don't plan ahead, there's a saying that says if you don't plan to succeed, then you just plan to fail. So if we don't plan ahead and make proper preparations for the upcoming weeks, months, years, then we're gonna find ourselves in the same situation over and over and over again. So that's one lesson I really got out of this, that Esau did not plan. He didn't think ahead as to what's going to happen after I eat this food and I survive and now I'm out of the birthright for the rest of my life. And if you go even back further, before even how this all came about, was Esau, he went out in the field. He didn't even plan for that day. He went out in the field knowing that, you go out in the field, when you come back you're going to be hungry. If he had even planned from before, then he would have had some food when he came back, had something, so he knows that when he comes back I'm going to be hungry and I can eat. So that's even another lesson, and that's why we even got into this situation with Jacob and Esau, because Esau didn't plan from even earlier that day. So proper planning is essential in our everyday life, and planning ahead for our future, for our successes. Secondly, the second lesson I believe we can get out of this is really about negotiation. Because if you see, Jacob and Esau were involved in negotiation. And anytime that there's more than one person involved, you're in conversation, or you're with any other person, there's going to be a negotiation that's involved. And even as I'm thinking about this, even if you're by yourself, there's sometimes negotiation involved, because sometimes you have to convince yourself to do certain things you might not want to do, and you have to negotiate with yourself. But whenever you go through negotiation almost every day, and there's negotiation involved in our lives that we're not even aware of sometimes. But the negotiation between a husband and a wife, there's negotiation with your siblings, there's negotiation with your boss in your job you want to raise or whatever. There's negotiations all the time. But Jacob and Esau actually gave an example of a negotiation here. I believe this is an important lesson that we can learn from this chapter as well. Now, Esau, he had his birthright, and Jacob had the food, and that's where the negotiation came in, because they both wanted to exchange that. And one thing I saw that Esau, he acted out of desperation. Because he said, if I don't get anything to eat, then I'm going to die. And when you act out of desperation, in a negotiation, then you give up any leverage that you have to within that negotiation when you act out of desperation. So even though if you're negotiating for something, even though you might really, really, really want this thing, you don't want to be desperate for it, because then you're gonna, accept anything for you to get that thing, and you're really gonna put yourself on the short end of the stick. Okay, so that was one lesson that I believe that in negotiation. But even on the other side of negotiation, with negotiation, it's important for both parties to feel like they have gotten something out of the deal and to feel pleased with the deal. Because in this situation, at the end of it, it says Esau despised his birthright, because at the end he realized that he gave up his birthright just for some food. So, and that's actually on both parts, because even though Jacob got the better part of this negotiation deal, it's on both parts really for it to be a successful negotiation, for both parties to be happy. So it's on Jacob and it's on Esau that both of them should have ensured that something came out good for both parties. And the reason being, when you negotiate with someone, you don't want to just completely destroy the other person in the negotiation. You want them to get something out of it. You know why? Because you want to be able to go back and negotiate with them again. If you just completely rob them in this negotiation, in the negotiation that you're doing, then that doesn't leave any opportunity for you to negotiate with them another time. So you don't want to burn any bridges by not making both parties get something out of the deal, getting some kind of benefit out of the deal. And that's another important lesson I believe that we can learn from this chapter, and I learned from this chapter I wanted to share. So when you negotiate, you don't want to act out of desperation, because you're putting yourself at the disadvantage, and you also want to make sure that both parties get something out of the deal. So it's a pleasurable situation for both parties, and they'll want to negotiate again, because you're always going to have relationships, and you don't want to burn those bridges. Okay? So that was the lessons I got for this. There's so much stuff that we're getting out of these chapters, and I encourage you, whatever you get from it, to share with us, email us, we'll put it on the blog, and that's it for today. So go ahead, create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today. I'm sure you'll see some opportunities of negotiation, so now you can think about it in a different light and, negotiate probably a little bit better. I'm sure a little bit better. But create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we'll talk again tomorrow.